Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
So bears, oh, they're so cute. And, of course, everybody's had a teddy bear. And everybody gets teddy bears, even today. It's funny, now that we're into robots and we have all this high technology, when their little baby's born, the first thing you think about is getting them a teddy bear. And that's why I love to have Karen Signell, who's an author of a very, very special book. You've heard her before, named Smokey Bear, the cub who left his paw prints on history. And Karen did a lot of research. Karen, am I wrong in saying it took you about 10 years on this?
It took me 14 years.
14 years.
And in a way, it took me 50 years.
That's true. I know what you're going to say. Why don't you explain that statement?
Okay. Well, when I was 15 years old, that was 1950, my father came home and he said, "You have to see something in Washington, D.C." We were in the outskirts. He says, a little bear has come who was burned in a fire. He said, "You would love to see him, I'll bet." He knew me, of course. I love wild animals. So I hitched a ride into Washington, and I visited this little bear. He was tiny, and he had such sad eyes that I thought, I wonder what his story is. He was burned, and he looked sad, and I wrote a little story right then about him. And I got some photographs from the Forest Service, wonderful photographs of him. I was a little shy at the time, but I just marched in and asked, and they took me seriously, even though I was just a kid.
And this was at the zoo? Where was
no,
this?
No, that was at the Forest Service, the big building that has agriculture building.
And they actually were they were housing this.
The bear was in the Smithsonian National Zoo.
Oh, that's what I meant. So it was the Smithsonian National Zoo.
But I went over to the Department of Agriculture and got up my nerve and walked in and asked the Forest Service if they had photographs of the bear. And they said yes. They were very kindly toward me and took me seriously and gave me beautiful photographs of him, which are in the book.
Yes, I know. And it sounds like it's very hard not to love a little bear, especially a bear that went through what he did. Why don't you talk about that?
Well, he was very small, high in the mountains of New Mexico, up about 1.5 miles, and he was the runt of the litter. They know, the vet who saw him afterward. And what happened while he was still very tiny, a horrendous fire came, like some of the fires we're hearing about in the West now, started by a camper who was careless, and it became a firestorm. And he was found after the fire, all abandoned, burnt belly, burnt rear end, burnt paws, and very dehydrated. And some firefighters brought him down. And he was taken to a vet, flown to a vet. And I don't know if to tell that story, but
something, if I recall, unless this is another one I read, though, they weren't supposed to do that, were they? So someone got in trouble doing this.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. And even today, if you see an injured animal, a wild animal, people just feel so empathic that they want to save it or rescue it, but they don't realize that sometimes, like a bird or a mammal, its mother is nearby who will take care of it. So you have to be careful about that. But now there are sanctuaries and there are specialists who know how to take care of a wild animal and then take them back to the wilds, which is wonderful.
So here we have this little bear, and they are taking care of this bear. They believe, even though the bear was in very serious condition, critical, that they could do something for the bear.
Yeah. Well, the vet was a very kindly vet. He saw wild animals that the hero in the story brings in. And this is true, of course. His name was Ray Bell, a game warden. He would take any animal, wild animal, and see them for free and put them in his hospital, and this little bear too. But the little bear, after many days, wouldn't eat, and he was dying. So the warden asked if he could take him home to his wife and family, because she had helped quite a few wild animals survive. And I think she knew how to make certain formulas out of pablum and things like that. And so he brought the little bear home to his little daughter and son and wife, and he thrived. So that was, in fact, he played with the little spaniel, the little Cocker Spaniel puppy who was in the house.
So now there's a danger in this, isn't there? Because you fall in love with this little animal, and as it's growing up, it's not a pygmy.
Yep.
So what happened?
Yeah. After a while, they thought that he was getting large enough that he could hurt someone, and they had to find a place for him. He couldn't be returned to the wild. He didn't know how. So they searched around and found that with some maneuvering, which you'll see in the book, there's some politicking going on, they found that the National Zoo would take him. And then he could be there. Oh, and he was named Smokey. I mean, they did have the Smokey poster bear, which everybody who's hearing us knows about, the one that says, "Only you," right?
With that hat. Remember that?
That's right.
Smokey Bear with a hat.
But he started chiding people in a way, with his finger, saying, you should be careful, which was very helpful for people being careful about fires. But they thought that this little Smokey who had survived a fire and who was very appealing, I know it, they thought that people would empathize with him and what happened to him and be careful. And so he was taken into the zoo and lived for 26 years.
Now, before that, did they have other bears in there? They did.
In the zoo?
Yeah.
They may have. I don't know.
So he was put alone, though. He wasn't put with other bears.
He was alone, but later in life, Goldie Bear from the same part of the woods in New Mexico joined him. So he did have a companion, you might say. What happened was that everybody was hoping, especially the newspaper reporters, were hoping there'd be a little bear. And, animals in captivity sometimes don't mate. And it could be he was injured, too. I'm not sure. But well,
did he live? In your book, I have to just say that we're telling you the story.
Yeah.
It's a true story, but the thing that makes it so special is that Karen Signell, I don't know, maybe in her past life she was a bear. I'm not quite sure, because she has such a great feeling. She has a great feeling for all wildlife, but she has such a great feeling for this bear. You just want to bring it home and hug it and kiss it and keep it, and the pictures that you have are so beautiful, and it was quite a big thing in that time. Let's see. So what was the year now when this bear was?
1950.
1950, and the bear lived 25 years?
26 years.
26 years.
Yeah.
And, of course, you got to see the bear.
Yes, I got to see him.
How often did you see that bear?
Well, I moved away from Washington and lived all sorts of other places, so I didn't see him again. But I've gone over his pictures. I went to Washington to the archives, Forest Service archives, and went through hundreds of pictures to find good ones and make sure they were of him, not somebody else. So I feel like I've been immersed in looking at Smokey all these years.
Did anybody else ever write about Smokey?
Yes. Meanwhile, I found, because I didn't get back to the story till the year 2000 when I retired, I found that a man had written, by the name of Lauder, had written a historical biography of Smokey, the poster bear and the little bear, with hundreds of interviews with people who actually knew him, and he wrote really well. So I had vivid historical stuff about this bear, and I tried to be as veridical as I could be writing the story. Oh, I forgot to say something though. Early on, I saw the book Watership Down about rabbits, which is very popular even today, many decades later, and it was written about rabbits, and as soon as it was written from their viewpoint, so it's like after I read the book, it's like I was having my ears above the grass, looking at things like a rabbit does, and I thought I want to write it from Smokey's viewpoint, so people can really know about bears. They know about all the animals he encounters. They can really feel for him.
When I read the book, I loved it because he had a lot of friends when he was still out, and they talked to him and they cared about him and they felt badly. I mean, and then when he was in the zoo, he made a lot of friends.
Yes, he did. He won some over a bit. He had a friend who was a rat.
But now this is your idea. That wasn't real. So that's the part of the novel part.
And I tell at the end what's real and what was actually made up. But I know a lot of the animals in the book. I knew them personally. I had a monkey when I lived in Asia. And so a monkey suddenly popped into my mind. And then I knew one of the main characters is a crow, actually.
Oh, yeah. That crow really...
Strut.
Yeah, it was great. That's what I mean, it was amazing between the reality and the fiction that you were able to bring all the animals together.
Yeah, I've studied a lot of what the scientists and the naturalists have said about animals that are in the book. And some of it's really fascinating. One of my readers said that she learned a lot about all kinds of animals that she didn't know before. Like there's a beaver in the book that was rescued. And I once held a beaver in my arms, and so I know that they're very gentle, and they'll wrap their little hands around your finger just like a child will, and they're very gentle, and they'll look at you. I mean, so a lot of these animals I've actually known, and they come to mind because I really cared about them. I knew them.
Right, and you're a very, very good writer, so you add that to this real live story. Now, I'm looking at lots of PR that's happened. Of course, we had a wonderful joy of making the Smokey Bear the book of the month a few months ago, and I have to say that I'll never forget it. I mean, it just warmed my heart, and I was telling Karen that it just upsets me so to see what's going on with trying to clear certain areas out west of bears and people with shotguns and killing these poor things. It's very hard for me. And people say, well, there'll be too many. They're not going to overrun this huge country we have.
No.
But anyway, and and then how someone could then do it, skin the bear and have it in their house, I can't deal with it.
I know.
It's very hard. So you and I are, we have the same sensitivity. But let's have you read some of the special places in your book that you think people would like, because it's always nice to have the writer read because you wrote it.
Yes.
So we're going to let Karen Signell, and let me just tell you, if you want to buy the book, you can go to Amazon.com. It's a kind of a book, I think, that if you're a grandmother especially, and you want to read to your grandchildren, this is a wonderful book. You get started, and then at the, let's say maybe an hour later, okay, tomorrow night we'll finish it. It's a wonderful thing that you can just keep going, right?
Yes.
It's a lovely, and the cover is just breathtaking of Smokey Bear. Just breathtaking.
Yeah, so many books about animals are very sad. They're from the person's viewpoint that then their cat died and it was a tragedy. But this book really is it's a little bit bittersweet at times, but it's actually heartwarming.
Oh, it is. And just think of a bear that should have died, actually, but it was cared for and it had a great life.
Yeah, I think it did have a pretty good life, although being caged in a zoo. But this came to mind this morning. The quote at the beginning of this chapter in the middle of the book is, because I'm saying this because some people have cats.
Okay.
And the quote I have is by someone else is, cats are absolute individuals with their own ideas about everything, including the people they own.
Yeah, that's true. They do. Now, I know you have dogs.
Yes.
But you don't have a cat.
I've known cats.
Yeah,
I've known cats very
too.
well.
Right.
And they each have their own personality.
Oh, yeah.
And so at one point, the bear is is in this household. He's recovering quite well. People come to visit. They just knock on the door and they let them in.
But now this is the true part, because they did have the bear in a person's home.
In the home. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And he says to the cat, he says, "My problem is the strangers who come to the house. I can't tell who will bother me, so I hide." And so Lightning, the cat, says, who's a very wise cat, quite a character, she says, "Well, generally speaking, there are two kinds of humans. There are the quiet ones, like a shy dog or a cautious child. They let you come to them. Others stand tall and walk around with the confidence of a big dog like a German shepherd." And the bear says, "That reminds me of Ray and some of his male friends. They make me bristle." And she says, "Well, that kind usually doesn't like cats, so I don't rub against their legs or they'll boot me aside." And he says, "Well, and then she goes on, because she's full of advice. She says, "It's their bodies that reveal how they really feel. One thing you'd never guess, if someone stares at you, doesn't necessarily mean they're mad at you or trying to dominate you." And the little bear says, "So when Ray looks right at me, he's not challenging me?" She said, "Not necessarily. He's just a confident man. And if he gives you a long, steady look right into your eyes, it means he really likes you." And Smokey says, "Well, I have to think about that. That's hard to believe."
See, now I'm so glad you read that, because that gives people an idea. So here we have a real life situation of a bear being cared for, but all these other little bits and pieces you put in there is all fiction, and that took a lot of imagination for you to do that.
Well, and I know that that's true for animals misunderstand humans' communication. And one reason I have, some people don't think you should have words in a book that animals say, but I wanted to translate our language into theirs. Just like here, the lightning was translating humans' language, you might by their posture and so on, into something a bear could understand in their language, which would misunderstand things.
No, I agree with you. And, of course, I have this little, did you ever get to see Snowy, my little Maltese? I don't think you got to see her.
No, I didn't.
Well, she is so sweet, and this has just started. I'm sitting at my computer, Karen, and she's usually lying down in her bed. She comes up to me, I'm sitting on my computer. She comes up and she puts this stare on me. Now, the little Maltese have these jet black eyes. Mm-hmm. So she's looking at me. "Okay, Snowy, what do you want?" She just keeps looking at me. I said, "All right, Snowy, I'll be finished later." She never moves. She's looking at me. And so I say, "Listen, I have to finish this." So I go back to finish it, and then she goes, just like that. It's not a real growl. It's like, "Mommy, I want some attention, or I have to go out, or I want my food."
Yeah.
And she has started doing this. So see, and I can see. And then there are, so many other things that happen that, in bed, when she's in bed with us, a lot of times she gets very close to my husband and not to me, because I guess in bed, I probably put my arms all around, and I guess she thinks she'll get hit or something. But I know, after listening to you, I could write a whole book about what Snowy thinks about us, right?
You could.
And so I think it's a great thing that you've done.
Yeah, it is. And it's fun to write. And I love seeing on television some of the wildlife programs by David Attenborough and others up close. Oh, I just love them.
Oh, the other thing I was thinking, people who are listening now, you may have some animals in your home, cats, dogs, or maybe other kinds, birds. Why don't you take a shot at writing about, you could just do a couple of pages about what you think is on the mind of your pets. I think that could be a whole new, maybe you're going to be able to help teach people how to write about their animals from their perspective, what they think the animal's thinking.
Yeah, because, we do that with our animals. We really look, they look at us, but we sure look at them too, and we know what they're feeling sometimes. I use words with my animal, with my miniature poodle, a little black poodle, and she's catching some of those words now. Just like they say with a very young child, it's good to speak to them quite a bit. They do pick up things, and it's good even for their reading later. So
not for the dogs reading. You mean for the reading? You mean?
I was talking about little children.
Oh, the children. I thought that's
Talking
what
to
you
little
meant. I
children,
say, okay,
too.
Karen, now we've gone a little bit too far. But
No, I'm not over
You're not over that yet.
But yeah, it is fun. It is fun to write because it. And what I do is I just pour it out. I don't try to think I'm going to publish this or anything. I just put whatever comes to my mind and throw it down on paper, so to speak. And so the first stage is easy in a sense. And then sometimes I'll be walking around. I always keep a pen and paper with me, and something will pop in my head. And I'll scribble it down before I lose it, especially at my age, where it's hard to lose things. It's hard to remember things. And so I think writing is a wonderful thing to do, especially when you're older. Animals you've known, the children you've known, some of the incidents, the funny ones you tell people about, and maybe pass them on to the next generation.
Well, I live in a building, a condominium, that allows dogs.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they have so many dogs going in and out.
Oh.
And Snowy's problem is that she really, if we go for a walk, she's not happy unless she gets to talk to some other dogs. Sniff, talk, you're going to love this.
Oh.
She picks on the large ones, though.
Really?
Oh, yeah. She wants the large ones. She likes the little ones, but they're not as interesting. For her, she sees these big shepherds and stuff. And I pick her up because I don't know if, the bird. And a lot of times those dogs are very sweet.
Yes.
The big ones.
Yes.
But I can't take a chance.
Sure.
Because I don't want anything to happen to her. But she really, she has her own mind. I think that, of course, she was a rescue. So I don't really know the history of Snowy. But she has a combination of a personality that's very gentle. And if you go to pet her and she's not aware, she jumps back because she's scared. But yet she's certainly aggressive in other situations.
So what happens when she sees, do you let them sniff each other
Well,
in your arms?
I'll pick her up and do that when I can. But sometimes the other owner doesn't want you to do that. But then there's some large dogs, like there's a beautiful Dalmatian, and the Dalmatian's very shy.
Oh, yeah.
And so Snowy goes up to it, and sometimes she'll go, "Rrr," she goes to, I'm just not going to attack it. I'll just start petting her. Snowy, that's a nice dog. Be sweet, Snowy. But
does she catch your tone of voice?
Oh, yeah. Snowy knows. Snowy knows who I am. I always bring her to the radio station.
Oh.
I was going to. I knew you were coming, but I knew I had to do something afterwards, and she wouldn't be welcome to go there. But I've so much wanted you to meet her because she's really the love of my life, like your dog. I know that your dog is.
Oh, yeah, I love my little dog. Yeah.
I know. It's become, it's like being a parent.
They depend upon you, and they light up your life.
They do. And I'm very concerned about what she eats. I've just gotten vitamins for her, and I really take care of her. In fact, I was going to be going out of town, and there's a woman that comes to our house and watches Snowy. But she had another, some people live above us, and they have 2 dogs, and she was watching them. She said, well, I'll just bring Snowy up there with them. I said, no, I don't want that because I know that she knows them. It's not the problem. Yeah. Because she knows her house here, and I didn't want her to go there.
Yes.
But I was if I didn't do that, she wouldn't watch her. And she loves her, so I figured I'd do it. But it's just for one day. But see, she says, Anita, you're just being too, blah, 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 mommy. Yeah. And I thought to myself, but I know that she knows where her bed is. She knows where everything is. Do you agree?
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. I think that's, they know their home, just like we do. And dogs do, cats especially do. They feel safe in their home. But a little dog like yours.
Who's already been moved around, if you know.
Oh, yes, and has a past that might bring up the past trauma.
That's why I was very, very strong about that.
You're a protective mother.
I am.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I
Good.
love that little dog. More than anything. So Smokey Bear. I love Smokey Bear, too, though, because that face. If you had... It's hard to believe that bear really looked like that. Someone captured that picture.
Yeah, and I saw him not too long afterward when because there he's being washed to go to Washington, D.C., to leave the home. He's in a bathtub there, actually.
Right, I remember. Yeah, I mean, it's a great picture. Just look at those little nails and the little red, has a little red collar on.
Yeah, and he has blue eyes because he's still that young.
Oh, I can't tell
a lot of little
that.
animals have blue eyes.
I didn't know that.
They're tiny.
And then they change?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Well, that's something new I learned. I
Yeah,
didn't know that was true. But the cub who left his paw prints on history, that was a great title underneath Smokey Bear. And, of course, it left the big paw print on you.
That's true.
I mean, you have just more or less, of course, you've been a professional, you're a psychologist, you've had quite a career.
Yeah.
But this has been a side part of what you really loved. And do you ever, this sounds crazy, do you ever see Smokey in your dreams?
No, I don't think so. Isn't that, but he's certainly,
I know he's in your mind.
in my mind a lot of the time, I must say.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
Writing about him during all those years of writing, I was thinking about him all the time.
I'm sure that's true.
Sure. He was on my mind and on my... I really wanted to write this book because I care about the wildlife and the wilderness. So hoping to save it, from these terrible fires.
That's just on my mind. That was my next question. See, we keep hearing about the houses burning down, but they don't talk about the animals that have been burned down in there.
That's right. And he faced that, and he got burned badly.
But he lived.
But he did live.
And but his mother didn't.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that's really it's funny. Before you came here, with all the fires that we've been watching, I hadn't thought about the animals. I was just thinking about the danger of people to their homes. But how many little critters and animals have we lost in those fires?
And they lose their forest or their grasslands too, and it makes everything out of kilter for a while. For their recuperating. In fact, I talk about that a little bit in the book of the crows that survive and how some of them even suffer. They warn the other animals something bad is coming, like crows often do.
And that's true. I mean, that is very true. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But some of them were burned who stayed in their nest too long.
Right. Well, you know what, Karen? We certainly did it again. Smokey Bear, the cub who left his paw prints in history, a novel by Karen Signell, Signell. You can get it on Amazon.com. Thank you so much, Karen.
You're
really
welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Good
also.
to see you.
Same here.